Oregon State season is winding down with just 2 wins on the season. Is this team any better than last year? We'll discuss. Plus, we talk a little Beavers basketball. Trace Tinkle out to a hot start. Will that continue? And the latest on Seth Collins' illness. All that and more. Talkin Beavers starts now. The Beavers back home in Corvallis. The team looking for answers after a 5th straight loss. Now a chance to end the season on a high note as they host Arizona this Saturday. And of course, welcome back here on Talkin Beavers. Amanda Maynard, Lindsay Schnell, James Dockery, Nigel Burton joining us. UCLA, a game, as Gary Anderson said, of really missed opportunities. Do you feel like they gave them this one?
Nah, I mean, we're going to be talking about this all year, and this is what we asked for. If you go back to the very first show, we said we want to see the team be able to compete and have a chance in the 4th quarter with an opportunity to win. I know that's exactly what came out of my mouth, and that's pretty much what I'm getting.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I do think a lot of missed opportunities. You know, there have been a lot of problems on special teams this year that have given away some big opportunities in particular. But this is life when you have a young football team that doesn't know how to win yet.
Yeah, I mean, going to the Rose Bowl and winning is difficult for anybody. I don't care who it is, because they got dudes at UCLA. It doesn't matter what year. I mean, I think in my entire career at Oregon State, I beat UCLA 1 time on a recruit, and I think it's just because Mama wanted them out of LA. That was it. So it's just, they're always going to have better players. It's just going to be, can you out-scheme them? Can you maybe be more mature than them? Can you, and can you execute better than them? And unfortunately, 2 of the 3 didn't work for the Beavers.
What positives did we see in this one?
I thought Marcus McMaryion, with the exception of that pick that he threw at the end, which was really, really bad, looked good, looked better. You know, it gave me confidence again, because I had been questioning, gosh, I had been so on the train with him, and then I was ready to kind of jump off. So I felt better about that. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me.
Well, yeah, 2 things I look at are the run game and then how the DBs play. I liked Artavis Pearson, what he was able to do. He's really shifty. He's a strong guy. He's very hard to tackle. We talk a lot about Ryan being the power back, but Artavis definitely is hard for a DB to tackle. And then Deku, he just continues to impress me on a weekly basis. He's, I think he watches the show because he was getting his hands on receivers this week in the boundary, and you could tell he's really working on his game on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, no, I think there were a lot of things that were positives to take out of it. I mean, obviously what Lindsay said, what Doc said. I actually thought the special teams played short of obviously the one big one that blew up. But when you saw what happened with Ramel Dockery, I mean, those are the kind of plays that, even though in the end maybe special teams wise you might give them a C, those are the things that then the next Monday when those kids go into special teams meetings, they're excited about special teams because they know things can happen now. This isn't just run down on kickoff, make a tackle, go to the sideline. Like, we can do some things and create some havoc for teams that we're playing against.
And I think that that's been a big thing in the Gary Anderson era so far that we've seen, is they are a little more interesting, a little more unconventional, and they need that for sure. And I agree, Nigel, that one big thing can be awesome. They're excited, they have confidence. One bad special teams play can turn a game, though.
Oh, no
and
question.
they have had a lot of problems on special teams this year at varying points.
Approaching the end of year 2 of Gary Anderson, he addressed the growth from year 1 to year 2 earlier this week.
I think the kids, to me, their ability to walk out there and compete and know that they can play with people, it's way different. Their expectations when they prepare, their ability to come in and watch film and prepare and work hard, their ability to deal with adversity. When you lose 25, 28 starts on a year, that's a tough deal to deal with for kids, and it stinks for the kids that are involved in that process of not being able to play. But, you know, you look at them today, and Bright's out there trying to help Jonathan Willis learn to be an outside backer for some games in the last 2 weeks, and he's scooting around on his cart, and he's highly involved every snap. That doesn't happen everywhere. Maybe it does, but I think it's pretty special when those kids are through those settings and those situations, and their belief of that they can go in and win. They're prideful of being physical, and it matters to them to be physical. It matters a lot. You look at this last game, and I would say that, you know, we got physical on one side of the ball with UCLA, and we didn't get physical enough with UCLA on the other side of the ball. And that's something that will have to be fixed if we're going to be competitive. And those are a few key points that tell me that the gap is closed.
Yeah, and Gary Anderson talking a little bit about, okay, the wins and losses, that doesn't matter as much when you're looking at, are they improving? Of course, fans don't necessarily feel that way.
Oh, I think fans do. I think fans do, absolutely. Fans know that this is a team that is playing a lot harder. We've talked about this a gazillion times, so I'm going to say it again because it's true. They quit last year a lot of the times, especially the upperclassmen stopped playing hard. Kevin McGibbon, the offensive coordinator, talked about this Tuesday at practice, that he feels that too, that guys are in it. They still believe, they have a positive attitude, they're confident. I mean, Nigel, I think you've talked a lot about people want linear improvement, and it doesn't always happen like that, especially when, only in year 2, but I think fans know that this is trending upward.
Yeah, and it almost never happens linearly. So it's one of those things where I think when you talk to fans, I agree with Lindsay. I think you still hear a lot of positive things. People see the product on the field is better. And we said before the season even started that, look, you're going to see improvement. We really believe that. You're just not going to see it in the record. And I think we talked about that week 1. Yeah. And we saw that improvement against Minnesota, even though it was in a loss. And you compare last year's schedule versus this year's schedule, it is 10 times as hard. I mean, you see it ranked nationally. It's in the top 10 nationally in terms of difficulty of schedule, and yet you saw all those numbers were improved, or worst case scenario, they were the same as last year, even though you're playing much tougher competition. So I think there's a lot of things, and I think Gary hit the nail on the head. Those guys are going into games this year feeling like we can beat these teams. We can at least compete. Whereas last year, I think they went into games going like, geez, I hope, and when it didn't go well, let's pack the bags and go home.
I agree with him, too, on how physical it is. Don't you, Doc? I mean, as the one who, most recently played on this panel, at least. Even though Nigel was a very physical
don't even
player.
try it. She just called me old.
He's a player.
No,
that
but
hurts.
They're really physical. They hit a lot harder, and I think that matters to fans because people had questioned their toughness the last few years.
Exactly. And I mean, that's our program. We're not going to be the glamour and glitz program like, some of the other schools. We're going to be more hard-hitting and more hard-working, and that's like some of the guys out there with their tackles and their in the run game, our stats in the run game, that shows that we're building a physical team. We work very hard in the offseason, and it's unfortunate that we see so many of our key guys that are getting hurt, because I think that identity will be even more on display with some of our main cogs being out.
So not to get too far ahead, but what does year 3 bring, or what does year 3 need to bring in order to really, again, assure us that they're on the right track?
I think you got to be knocking at the door on bowl eligibility. So much of it is going to depend on what the Pac-12 looks like, and that can depend on their coaching changes. Do people leave for the NFL that we weren't anticipating? Do some people come back? That type of thing. But I think being close to bowl eligibility is going to be important, because I didn't think they could be there this year. I think some people did, and those people were.
Yeah, a lot of that depends on, too, the quarterback play. I always talk about run game and defense, but Pac-12 is no secret. It's a quarterback-driven league as well. So I think it's going to be a healthy competition in the spring. And I think for us to go to a bowl game next year, like that number you say, Coach, with 200, 300 passing yards, certain completions, we got to be able to have a guy that can do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think they've got to be a threat with their legs in this. You don't have to be Seth Collins, but you have to be a threat with your legs, which that's still one thing that I know Doc always brings up with Marcus. You're not really seeing, and I just think. I think next year you got to start talking about bowl games. You really do. And I think the schedule hopefully will lend itself a little bit better to that, because this one going in, I mean, you looked at it, it was almost like, it's like somebody talking about Fresno State, and oh yeah, they're going to get Jeff Tedford. Yeah, their first 2 games are against Alabama and Washington. Good luck to you. So it was one of those like
this year. Who does Oregon State play in the non-conference next year? Do you know?
Well, I was actually trying to look that up while we were going. Hey, once I get this refilled with some Ensure or whatever old people drink, then I'll be able to find that out for you.
All right,
I love you, Nigel.
Men's basketball is certainly improving. We check in with Trace Tinkle later in the show. And what went wrong in the Beavers' run defense? Mike Parker joining us from Corvallis to discuss. And the Beavers could have used some help in the run defense department this weekend against UCLA. We're taking a look at that with our Les Schwab Quick Fix with Mike Parker. Mike, just last week we were talking about how bad UCLA's run game was, and they had their second best outing against the Beavers. What happened there?
They did, Amanda, and there's no question that the Beavers needed to hold up better against what has been a paltry running attack, but UCLA had shown the previous week against Colorado that it had the will to run the football. They had a game plan to run the football, and they were able at times to take advantage, I think, of the Beavers' injuries and inexperience. I thought it was interesting that when it came down to the goal line, that they didn't feel confident about just jamming the ball in against what I think is an improved defensive front. But some of the issues and some of the bigger run plays that occurred came as a result of just not being on the same page, the safeties with the linebackers, etc. But up front, the Beaver defense held up well and forced UCLA to throw the football at the goal line.
Just how much have the injuries played a role in the struggles of the Beaver defense?
It would take too long, probably, the rest of the show to break down each one and the significance of each injury. Primarily, the Beavers have been hurt with the outside linebacker position, but that's forced guys who are safeties to play outside linebacker. It's forced some safeties to play corner. It's put some inexperienced guys at the safety position. So it's been difficult to get a complete read of what Oregon State run defense really is all about. Arizona will challenge the Beavers every which way in the run game, so they're going to have to figure out a lot of things very quickly. But those injuries have been devastating, particularly on the outside linebacking core.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. Time now for our standard TV and appliance play breakdown, where we're taking a closer look at bad Beavers run defense. Nigel, take it away.
Well, listen, there are a couple things that obviously need to get fixed about the run defense. When we take a look at the UCLA game, you'll see what I'm talking about. So when we take a quick peek, it becomes pretty apparent early on that you just got yourselves an issue. Now here, we've got two receivers outside that are handled by the corner and the safety. But for some reason, the outside linebackers are extremely wide in the formation. So what ends up happening is you end up having 6 different, whether you've got the 5 offensive linemen and a back option, there's 6 different things that you've got to deal with, but there's only truly 5 guys in the box. So, well, 6 being greater than 5, you've got yourself a problem. You have an issue just starting with the alignment. The other thing that I noticed in watching the game was how slow, especially the outside linebackers and the safeties are to react to run. By the time you see low shoulders by the offensive linemen, especially when they're a yard up the field, guys should be flying downhill. And that wasn't exactly happening. As you can see here, we actually have guys backpedaling off the line. Now, the last thing is you want clear defined roles. The outside edge, the man on the end man line of scrimmage, should be the dive player so that the outside linebacker can show up on the quarterback should he pull. And more importantly, this is Mike Faithful. He's not a runner. That should have been something that should have been very clear to the Beaver defense. That being said and done, it worked out on this particular play. Fumble gets caused. I would love to see my man, Mr. Arnold, there as he's running. Go ahead and do me a favor. Make a block on my man right here, because if you do, big boy is going to go ahead and score. Doesn't happen. So he gets tackled on the 3-yard line. Now later on, this was the part that worried me, because I watched the week before against Stanford, did a great job keeping them out of the end zone. But here, undefined roles, right? These 3 guys, watch the linebackers, much better setup in terms of numbers. You've got 7 over here, there's 8 in the box for the Beavers. We're good to go. We've got that covered. Shouldn't even be available to run. But you gotta have somebody who hits the tackle wing gap. Somebody's gotta fill that up. And you probably don't want to be the little guys that are standing back here. Well, as the play develops, what hole gets created? That same exact gap. And once again, we're slow to react. The end result, all bad for the Beavs. The curious part is what was really hurting the Beavers was a read zone run game. And they better get it fixed, because when you play against Arizona, that's all you're going to see.
Yeah, Nigel, the Beavers will certainly have their hands full with Arizona this week, one of the better rushing teams in the conference. We're going to break this matchup down. And up next, what is going on with the inconsistencies of the Beavers? Welcome back. Let's hand out our Wilson Motor Game balls for the week. And Lindsay, we'll start with you.
How about Art Pierce? Ryan Nall's out, so Art goes 18 carries for 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 4.1 average. I thought it was pretty good considering, the Beavers were missing their #1 guy.
All right, Doc.
Hey, I know I bring up this guy about every other week. He might get tired of that, Beaver Nation, but hey, he's really getting better throughout the season, so I want to reward a young man for making plays. He's out there blanketing receivers in the boundary, playing well in the field. He did a lot better job this week getting his hands on guys, and right there he shows you 6'3" really helps at the corner spot.
All about the DBs.
You're the president of the fan club.
President of fan club.
I'm going to go with Manasseh Hungalu. It don't matter. His name is Manasseh, and he knows how to return fumbles. So I'm talking about bruh. He knows how to do it. Brandon Arnold just blocked for him. And then once again, with the big-time play, running it back, really putting the Beavers back into the game, man. Sometimes it's just about being Johnny on the spot and making something happen.
And knowing what to do with it.
Yeah, so he can be Manasseh or Johnny, whatever you want to call him. It's all good.
3 passes defended.
Now, one thing that has been rather consistent is their inconsistency.
Oh, nice.
Like that.
There you go.
Lindsay, I mean, what do you feel like is the solution there? What are you seeing?
So I am curious to ask Doc and Nigel what the solution is, since they're the ones that played and coached. Because so for a long time as a fan,
Turning the table on us.
Listen, okay, so for a long time as a fan, my attitude was always like, oh, they're trying really hard, you know, good for them, just in general in sports. Then I became a high school basketball coach, and I was like, you know what? Your job is to hit a three-pointer. So hit a three-pointer, you're going to sit on the bench. So I think that there are guys on this team that just haven't shown up this year, or they show up for one big play and then they go quiet. Bolden was guilty of that early in the season. He's been a lot better now, but Seth Collins, you know, obviously we're going to talk about him more later, but he's someone else, like one big play and then they go away. So can you coach that consistency, Nigel?
Well, guys got to stay healthy. Guys got to be on the field. A lot of the main guys that are out there, you know, relied on to make plays, they're not there, so we're constantly shuffling a deck of cards. But I think, I don't know, it's going to be hard.
I want to go on record to say my daughter will never play basketball for you because she'd be scared to shoot.
We were really good.
She'll be scared to death. Dad, this lady's mean. No, you know what? Sometimes it really just has to do with your competition, and it has to do. You're talking a lot about offensive players.
Yes.
And offensive players are really they're still subject to the play calling. So if I'm a wide receiver and we're playing against Cal and we're gutting them for 400 and something yards rushing, I'm not going to get opportunities. It's going to look like I disappeared when in actuality it's just about how we're playing that game. The other thing I think that you see a lot of when you talk about, well, a guy will have one big game and then you don't hear from him for a couple of games. Sometimes you can take advantage of weak competition in particular position spots. So you may have a time where you're playing against a weak secondary, you have a breakout game as a wide receiver. Next 2 weeks you're playing against real dudes. I give you, it's the Justin Herbert effect, right? Against Arizona State, against Cal, guy looked like he was going to win the Heisman after his sophomore year. Well, then he ran into the guys at Troy. Yeah, and it was a totally different deal, and he played against Stanford. Those are real defenses, and he got exposed for being a true freshman. So a lot of times you can take advantage of those situations and matchups.
Yeah, I think Lindsay, too, is talking about, like, you know, guys like, you know, Villeman. I like JV and stuff, but, you know.
Yeah, I'd like to know, this is my Where Did Jordan Villeman Go segment.
It's like... You know, that's tough because a lot of the guys that we're relying on to be big-time players by now, Hunter Jarman,
yes,
you know, Paul Lucas, you know, so it's fair.
Is
like,
Romel Dockery still on the roster?
Yeah, he's there. He had the play on the punt return, made some plays.
Fair question.
It's a fair question.
You bring up Herbert. I mean, is youth is an excuse? I mean, because again, a lot of young guys on the defense. I mean, is part of it growing pains?
To me, it's a lot more offensive problems, to be clear.
Yeah, I was hurt my sophomore year, so I didn't get to take those lumps. I took a lot of them early in my junior season when I played. But, you know, when these guys are young, you can't expect every young player to come into the Pac-12 and just be super successful. This is an elite conference.
Yeah, I still go back to, if you're talking about offensive players, it's just much more difficult because you can't blame a wide receiver for not putting up big numbers when you're running for 300 and 400 yards in games. Like, once again, I go back to the offensive coordinator should fire himself if he's throwing passes and you're gutting people for 7 yards a carry. That doesn't make any sense. So if those guys disappear in those games, that's not their fault. And once again, you could take advantage of suspect secondaries when you're playing against Cal. You're playing against Arizona State this year only because they were so beat up.
You're playing against the Ducks next week.
Well, so it's just sometimes it's those things. Sometimes it really is. Sometimes it's, hey, as many quarterback changes as there have been for the Beavers this year. You've got one quarterback, then another guy comes in who maybe you don't have the same timing or relationship with, then a third guy comes in, and you're trying to get that down with him all mid-season. Is just a lot, and that's why I think especially the receivers, you've seen the receivers' numbers suffer.
And a lot of injuries, too. Noah being out, we don't really have an X-type receiver, like a possession-type guy that we can rely on every third down.
That's a great point.
All right, much more to come here on the show. We're breaking down men's basketball a little later. Talk about their improvement as we sit down with Trace Tinkle. And up next, the latest on Seth Collins, who remains in the hospital. Back here on Talkin Beavers, and Reser Stadium in Oregon State welcoming in Rich Rod and his Wildcats on Saturday. And of course, they will be without one of their key guys, Seth Collins, who remains in the hospital. Obviously not far from the minds of this team as he remains hospitalized in Corvallis, an undisclosed injury. Lindsay, you spent some time down there this week. What are people saying about
Okay, so it comes out that Seth Collins is in the hospital. He's at Good Samaritan, I believe it is. He was recently upgraded to fair condition, which is higher than stable, so it's good. It means he's getting better. Now, it has not been disclosed what is going on with him. His family has just said it's an illness. However, Benton County Health put out a statement saying there has been a student hospitalized with meningitis. You can probably put 2 and 2 together here and come up with 4, but it's important to note that Seth's family has not confirmed that. What we do know is I reached out to UCLA this week and asked them if they were taking any sort of precautions. They said that they had talked with staff at Oregon State and decided that no interventions were necessary. This is a serious thing. It's scary. There was a student, with meningitis who died at U of O in spring of 2015. If Seth does have that, everyone believes that he's not headed down that path. He's getting better, like I said, upgraded to fair, but really serious and gives you a lot of perspective on what's going, on football in general, and really sad. Kevin McGivern talked about he's like got all the energy at practice. They run out to do their walkthrough, and he's the one that's just bouncing up and down. And McGivern's always like, "Okay, save some of this for the game, buddy." So they're definitely gonna miss him. I would guess that his season is probably over. We don't know that for sure. Again, we continually wait for updates.
And here's what Kevin McGivern had to say about Seth Collins' illness.
Didn't really see too many ill effects out here on the practice field, but you see guys have made comments in meetings, and you've seen some guys tweet some things out on social media and stuff like that, and we've asked them to be careful with some of those types of things when it's a team issue like that. But to me there is an outpouring, and so stuff like that hits home.
And Marcus was kind of saying that it gives the team a little bit extra motivation too to go out and play a little bit harder like Seth does. Do you think you'll find that as well with the guys, that they're fighting for him as well?
Yeah, I would hope they would be inspired by that a little bit, because that is something that Seth brought to this team. Not only was he working really, really hard every week to master the position that he was playing, but he brings a lot of energy and excitement to our team. Even when we walk onto the field for the first time to meet with Coach Anderson when we arrive at the stadium, he's already huffing and puffing and making his way around the stadium. It's just like, gosh dang, I hope he doesn't burn too much energy before we get out to warm-ups. And because of that, I see him as one of the emotional leaders of the team, because it's that's something that guys get excited about, something they can rally around and get him juiced up a little bit. So love what he brings to the table there. We'll miss that, but I think guys will respond in a big way.
In our Comcast business class, Built for Service, we're taking a look at some of the guys who may be stepping in for Seth Collins. Nigel, these were kind of the trio of guys that you felt might be stepping up with Collins out, right?
You know what? I'm throwing a curveball.
Oh,
because
you decided Jordan Villeman shouldn't be in this?
No, but what's funny is the question was posed to me: who are the guys that you would expect to step up with Seth being gone? My answer: Artavis Pierce. Because here's the thing to me is, you look at Arizona, their run defense is 9th in the conference, and they did not play the schedule that Oregon State did when you think about playing teams like Minnesota and Boise State who will grind you out. They played Hawaii, Grambling, and BYU. So, one, where they're at in terms of their run defense, I think is way behind where the Beavers are. The other thing is, Artavis Pierce has more catches than all 3 of those guys do. So, I just think that he's a guy who I think will really take advantage. If Ryan Nall is available, that's where I would start to think of using maybe some 20 personnel packages. Doc, where you got 2 backs, no tight end because Togai is out, 3 receivers, and now you can mix and match, put 2 of your best players and your best receivers on at the same time. That's what I would try to look to do and try to see if I can get Artavis going.
You know what I like? I like that last game we saw JV. Like, we're hard on Jordan because, last year he was one of the bright spots. Seth, speaking of Seth, I hope he get well fast. He threw a lot of good passes to JV. And I just really hope Jordan, he had an opportunity to make some plays last game. He made a couple, dropped a couple, or fumbled the one. We just need him to step up because we need this guy next year.
And I just think the issue is, Timmy Hernandez has been kind of one of those people that I think Lindsey talked about, is had some moments and then it's been a little inconsistent. Paul Lucas is a guy who's got a ton of talent, but really struggled just to find a role, and I think it's tough for a young guy to play multiple positions, and I think that's where he's gotten lost. And then Jordan Villeman, I can't explain. I just think for whatever reason this is a season that he wants to burn. Hopefully, well, they don't have tape anymore, so he might go into the film room with a big old magnet and try to just kill all the hard drives, because he's just had a season to forget.
Yeah, because I tell you, as a former corner in the NFL, like, if I look at that whole roster and if I said who was the last person I would go against, JV is the one that looks like a guy I used to see all the the
He
time.
is built for the red zone. I've been saying that since he showed up on campus.
Yep.
All right, and
Come on,
and we're asking you to weigh in on who you think will step up in Seth's absence. Just hop onto Twitter, CSN NW to vote. We'll reveal the results on another. You can throw in another.
Is other.
And right now, James is getting you ready for the game at the OSU Beaver Store.
What's going on, Beaver Nation? It's James Dockery back here at the OSU Beaver Store. Hey, this weekend is a very important day. We have Family Day against the Arizona Wildcats. Come on down what used to be known as Dad's Weekend and buy something for your father, your mom, your grandpa, your grandma. We have all types of stuff for your family to help cheer on our Beavers to get another Pac-12 win. We have everything you need here and more at the OSU Beaver Store. Fans, start here.
Talkin Beavers basketball now, and the first Pac-12 Player of the Week award of the season going to sophomore Trace Tinkle. He averaged 23 points and 13.5 rebounds in 2 wins for Oregon State. And the men's basketball program is trending in the right direction, thanks in large part to Trace Tinkle. He hasn't missed a beat since breaking his foot last season. And our Lindsay Schnell had the chance to sit down with him to talk a little bit about the season and some unique bonding activities with the team.
So you guys play NBA 2K and FIFA, and you're the best at FIFA?
That's what I say. I like that. I'll go with that, yeah.
There's a running scoreboard on your fridge, evidently?
Yeah, the fridge in my apartment, yeah, we got a scoreboard of wins and losses, but we took that down right now just because the new FIFA came out, and so we're waiting to get that to start up a new record. But
what do the losers have to do? Like
just get it laughed at by everyone else for being the worst one. Just something up there to remind you that you're not very good.
Okay, well, on the floor, how great is it to finally be back?
Long summer for sure, spring as well, missing the games and not being able to be on the court, it's tough. But as soon as I was able to start swimming and running in the water, that's the first thing I was doing, just to, do as much as I could to make up for lost time. And even though I wasn't able to, be out here running, jumping, and shooting, I worked on different areas of my game that I thought I needed to, or I would have focused on as much as if I was healthy. So, I try to take some positives out of it, help my ball handling get tighter and more secure, and then tighten up my shooting form.
So last year, besides making the tournament, what was your favorite moment?
Just being on the road, traveling was super fun, rooming with different people, just, kind of getting closer and building connection like that. Just sharing that connection with everyone is probably one of my favorite things. Just, that's what sports is about, seeing a smile on people's faces in the crowd and getting noticed out by, the youth. All those things are just awesome and make you feel, so special as a person, seeing, all these people who look up to you and, want to emulate your style. It's a dream come true.
Time now for our Flat Tail Brewing Damn Good moment. Let's talk about Trace Tinkle, everything he's done so far this season. Mike Parker rejoining us from Corvallis. What do you expect from Trace this season?
Well, more of the same. In fact, I think there's a better level of play, Amanda, that Trace is going to achieve, and that, according to his dad, Wayne told me this week that Trace is still only about 60 to 75% back in full condition. He was cleared for full activity less than a month ago, so he's still trying to get his legs under him. But as he described there, he used the offseason to hone his game in different kinds of ways, even if he couldn't be on the court. And this early productivity I see as a result of him going to work, studied, and he knows that he's got to score more, he's got to rebound more in the post-GP2 era. So as he gets fully back, 100% condition and shape, look for Trace to continue to put up those kinds of numbers.
Another solid recruiting class for Oregon State. Letter of intent signing day last week. Tell us about some of the guys that are coming in. It sounds like they have local family ties.
The family tie is the most important thing, and that the Thompson family now can be fully back together, Amanda. Stephen and Amy, the parents of Stephen Jr. and Ethan Thompson. Amy has stayed down in Los Angeles and Torrance at Bishop Montgomery High School watching Ethan, and will continue to do that throughout Ethan's senior year. But then the family's all going to come back together here. The parents will get to watch their sons, ultra-talented, great students, great young men. The Thompson Thompson family, I know, is complete now, and Ethan Thompson is a consensus top 50 player and considered the highest recruit Oregon State has ever signed. And Zach Reichel from Wilsonville is just a prototypical Wayne Tinkle player. He can do a lot of things, but his competitive attitude, his willingness to defend, his ability to catch and shoot and do all the little things, this is a tremendous class, Zach Reichel and Ethan Thompson.
Lots to look forward to. Thanks so much, Mike. Lindsay, from sitting down with Trace, I mean, where do you think, I guess, his ceiling is this season?
Well, can Trace Tinkle stay healthy? That's the whole question. I'll tell you what, Trace Tinkle is not going to stay healthy if he's playing 30 to 35 minutes a game against bad teams. Wayne Tinkle said that himself, that they've got to be able to scale back Trace's minutes, and I think they will, you know, but we've talked about this team is young. It's really different. The tournament is going to be a lot harder to get to. One thing that's interesting to me, Amanda, as we talk about basketball is I get really frustrated when fans say, well, come on, the basketball team got so much better. You know, football can do it too. You need 3 good players to win in basketball. 3 good guys and a bunch of players that understand their roles. So, Nigel, you were the football coach. How many players do you need to win in football? But how much can a good quarterback mask a ton of problems elsewhere?
You need 30.
Okay.
Versus 3.
That's a lot more.
Well, 30 out of 100.
and more importantly, you're right. I mean, a
Same
good
percentage.
quarterback, you maybe can reduce that number to 20.
Okay.
But yeah, you do. You know, Don James used to have an old thing where he would say, listen, you need 10% of your football team, which, I mean, you're talking about 8 guys, need to be NFL caliber players.
Interesting.
And you need, you know, and you need 80% of your guys need to just be good, solid college football players, same those role guys. He said, then you need the other 10%. The remaining 10% to
be bodies,
to
right?
be guys who had they were guys who had a criminal element about them. Like if it wasn't for college football, they would be in prison. And then you have the 80% that keeps the bottom 10% from killing the top 10%.
Okay.
So that was his philosophy in recruiting. You know,
What a pyramid.
Hey, look at all the championships. It worked.
Hey, get it back to basketball real quick, though. You know how you said that this year it may seem a little bit harder for the Beaver basketball team to get to the tournament, but I don't think so, because I think that if you look at that preseason schedule this year for the basketball team, I think that we're going to roll through that, unlike other years where we had a preseason schedule that wasn't really that hard. Let's be real.
But if you go 500 in the Pac-12, then you could be in some trouble if you didn't have a good non-conference.
Exactly, but I think that if we could win the home games, let's say win all the home games, split the road games, and then we're sitting in a pretty good position, maybe 4th in the Pac-12, 5th in the Pac-12, and I think we'll get 6 or 7 teams in the tournament this year, I hope.
I think it's worth noting, number one, that Washington basketball, which was supposed to be a lot better this year, had a really bad opening by losing to Yale, so maybe that means that they're not going to be as good and the Beavers can sneak in. And also, I hope everyone knows that James Dockery is probably the biggest basketball fan sitting on this panel right now.
Give me some love.
So excited for them to be good.
Thank you.
More football talk on the way, but first, we want to give a shout out to all of our trivia players out there. Win $2,500 in prizes participating in our CSN Trivia Challenge. Here's a look at some of your local spots that you can play. And coming up next, Arizona is having a rough year where the Beavers can take advantage this Saturday.
It's been without maybe the most frustrating year I've ever had. You know, I've had other bad years. Thankfully, I haven't had too many, but it's probably the most frustrating in a lot of ways. And that doesn't mean you're disappointed in everything. It just means you're frustrated in a lot of stuff.
In our Toyota of Portland on Broadway tune-up, here is a look at the Beavers' next opponent, Arizona, and their last 7 games, 7 straight losses. And aside from playing Washington close, I mean, not many of these have been close at all. Why do you guys feel like this team is struggling?
Well, they can't play defense. Like at all.
Quarterbacks quarterback
like I need to do a disclaimer. Like, listen, coaches, I sit on a show with one of my good friends, Lindsay Snell, but disclaimer, whatever she says is a reflection of her and her own. These do not reflect the sentiments of Nigel Burden or anybody else on this panel. Please don't shoot me when I see you again.
The quarterback thing has been a problem. The quarterback thing has been a problem too, no doubt, as James just brought up. You know, but they're struggling talent-wise. They've been pretty beat up this year, correct?
They've been absolutely annihilated. The only school that comes close to Oregon State in terms of injuries has been Arizona. I mean, they have shuffled between 3 different quarterbacks, had to take a guy's red shirt away. As soon as one guy gets healthy, he's healthy for about a quarter, gets knocked out again. I mean, Brandon Dawkins, I mean, they pretty much have a mobile match unit ready for whoever gets hurt next. And it's been insane. And then you look at the fact that receivers have been down, all those things. They're still able to run the football. Their top running backs are all averaging 5+ yards per carry, 6.5, 6.9. So they're still getting
And
chunks.
their quarterback can run the football too.
Exactly. So they are a scary, scary football team. I mean, there's no question about it. It's just they have been beat up, and it's you know, and they paid for it. And so.
And don't they have a new DC? That's part of why they can't. They changed their scheme.
Yeah, so
right?
Marcel Yates.
So that's part of it.
And that's the other thing. So when you change schemes, and it was a drastic change.
Especially from last year's defense.
So Marcel and I played college football together, and so I've known him forever. And he is a guy who's it's very intricate in what he does. And so when you have a guy and you're trying to teach him, and the next thing you know, he gets hurt, he makes a mistake, he fixes it, but he gets hurt. Next guy comes in, has to make the same mistake that the first guy did. Then he gets hurt. Then the third guy comes in, makes the same mistake that the first 2 guys already did. And so that's what he's dealing with right now. And yeah, I mean, Rich Rod hit the nail on the head. I mean, they are so frustrated there. They're actually can't wait just to get out and get recruiting.
For him to say that this is the worst year, maybe the worst year he's ever had, when you think about his struggles at Michigan, that's saying something.
He did. And I asked him on our radio show, I said, hey, is there something you can lean on to get you through this season? And he did. He talked about his years at Glenville State. He talked about his first year at Michigan. So he has been through something similar. And I think at this point, really, they're like, listen, let's just get this thing over with, get these guys healthy. He's going to move up spring ball to try to get those guys rolling again, which so is Gary Anderson. Yeah. And so it's going to be a year to forget if you're a Wildcat fan.
You mentioned, again, just how good they are at running the football. We have also talked about how bad the Beavers are with rush defense. How do they match up there?
I think it's, I think it's going to be tough. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in X Factor. But here's the thing, okay? I think that Rich Rod is one of, if not the best coaches in the Pac-12, despite the year they're having. When you look at what he does with what he has, schematic genius. We talked about Glenville State. He invented the read option, like by accident in practice one day. So his ability to scheme, but it's so hard when you got so many guys beat up, that you can't even, practicing right now is probably a problem for them.
Yeah, the matchup's going to be interesting because the thing, I broke down UCLA and that issue. The problem is when you're playing UCLA, who are they going to be? Are they going to be a power run team like they wanted to be during the season? Are they going to be a read zone team? Or are they going to throw the ball 70 times, which they've done all 3 of those things? Going to this game against Arizona, that's not what they're going to do. There's no way they're going to throw the ball 50, 60, 70 times. So when you saw a lot of those pressures that did not hit home and actually made the Beavers pay for against UCLA, you're not going to see those things. I think you're going to see a much more vanilla defense so guys understand their responsibilities and fulfill them because you know that they're going to run the ball, and only throw it if you make them.
Really quick, I just want to say Rich Rod did say this week that he said Oregon State reminds him of Colorado 2 years ago. That's good news for Beaver fans.
All right, stick around. We'll give you our X Factors for the game coming up next. And don't forget to join Nigel, Matt Severson, and myself Fridays at 10 o'clock for our social media show. You can tweet us at #BeaversFootball. And, of course, we'll be breaking down the Arizona game even more. So we will see you on Friday. And Papa John's has been with us throughout the Beavers season. Nigel's laughing because he's so excited to see himself eating pizza.
So is Kyle, our producer. That was him right there on the left.
And we were all having a pretty great time. Lindsay, you're ready for the show?
Amanda, tell the truth. You removed every single olive.
You can't see Amanda's pizza, but it's hilarious.
I just don't love olives.
Hey, they got us to do some silly stuff while eating the pizza, and then they didn't want to show us doing the silly stuff, so we just did that.
You could reenact it right now if you want. We don't have our pizza though, because it's all done.
It was mainly because Doc wasn't in the promo.
Right.
He's like, I'm on that show too sometimes. And plus, then I had I missed my goatee too. I did the Movember thing, and it's not working.
No, it's all good.
It's not.
Rough times.
Well, on #, we do our Papa John's ingredients to victory. Here we do our X Factors, so we'll jump right into that. Lindsay, who do you have?
How about we were just talking about Manasseh Hunglu. The Beavers are going to have to be able to stop the rush. Manasseh has 64 tackles, this season, 3rd most on the team. Like Nigel said, Arizona can run the ball. It's been problematic for other teams. Can Manasseh keep them somewhat contained? Just maybe a little bit.
All right, Doc, who do you have?
Who do I have? I have Art Pierce. Art Pierce, big week for him because, like we just talked about all last segment, neither one of these teams have been successful at stopping the run. So Art, hey, Ryan Nall comes back. If he doesn't come back, just keep asking for that ball because you're doing a great job with it, young man. Get money.
All right,
Get money.
Not illegally, though.
Not illegally.
My two are, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I apologize, but it's going to be Kalani Vakamalelo.
And you need to say it again. No.
It's just Kalani V, all right? Kalani V is my guy, along with Elu Aiden. And I think really it comes down to, if you really want to disrupt the read zone offense, it starts with your your two big boys who are going to be eating up those A and B gaps. If they can get off blocks and create havoc inside, it kills the read zone. It kills the dive game. And now your linebackers and safeties can really focus on the quarterback. If they get that done, it's game, set, match. It's a wrap for the Beavs.
I like that you chose those two together. To say those two names together is...
Elu Aiden's easy.
No, because the turn between the Lou and the A is difficult for some of us. Lindsay Schnell is hard sometimes. Just gonna throw that out.
So, you threw out the question earlier about next year and what are the expectations for next year. And if you look at the schedule next year, you're talking about Portland State, you've got Colorado State, and you've got Minnesota at home. So Colorado State's on the road, I believe. You got Minnesota and Portland State at home. You're talking about a totally different range of expectations coming out of that stretch than you did when you had Minnesota, Boise State, and Idaho State. So I think that, these last two games are going to be critical leading into next season.
Agreed.
Two-game win streak. Two-game win streak. I'm calling it right now.
You've been pretty on fire this year, so I'm going to have to hope that comes through.
I've not picked them to win many games, so I'm hopeful that I come through in this one.
Beavers favored in this one, which is
for the first time in like 2 years.
They've been covering the spread. Not that I would know anything about that.
But not that you don't know anything about that either.
All right, thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.